Morning to all. I would like to welcome all. So today, right now, we are on the first session of the second day of LivenArch VIII, which is hosted by Karadeniz Technical University. During the first session of the second day of LivenArch VIII, we are going to talk about the design. So I would like to welcome our first topic of the day, redesigning with clashes, clash detection strategies for early design phases in digital culture. Please make a huge smile to Veli, Mustafa, YONDER, and Hasan, Burak, CAVKA for their presentation.
Thank you, Professor. I will start my presentation now.
If you want, I share your video. Normally,
okay.
We are going on like this. It is okay for you?
Okay, I prefer recorded version.
Okay. Just a minute, please. I am setting.
Hello, everyone. I am Veli Mustafa YONDER. I am PhD student at İzmir Institute of Technology. Today, I'm going to present our research entitled Redesigning with Clash Detection Strategies for Early Design Phases in Building Information Modeling Culture. Building information modeling culture has the capacity to coordinate between all building components and stakeholders with virtual platforms. Also, BIM and its associated advantage clash detection are of utmost importance during the first stages of design. The analysis of clash detection, which is a method that effectively identifies overlap between spatial and 3D geometric entities, plays a significant role in facilitating a feedback design approach. There are potential benefits for architecture, engineering, and construction industries to use these BIM digital tools for a variety of purposes throughout the project development phases. One of these tools is the clash detection, analysis, and prevention methods for monitoring design error. This study additionally investigates the different aspects related to the architectural and structural system of a two-story social and cultural center, spanning approximately 1,200 square meters. These aspects including design, modeling, clash detection, labeling, reporting, and comparative analysis. The present study involves an examination of specific scenario wherein a clash detection analysis is conducted utilizing contemporary digital resources. Didem Bayram asserts that clash detection procedures utilize either rule-based or geometry-based algorithms to analyze the model and recognize probable conflicts, transferring digital models of the same building from different disciplines to a common environment and computing their spatial and geometric relationships in terms of intersections and 3D proximity constitutes clash detection. Also, clash detection, a parametric modeling technique that evaluates the proximity of 3D constituents in a model, can be performed by standalone BIM tools. Pomelain and Golami suggest that clashes can be categorized into three groups. The first one is soft clash, second one is hard clash, and the last one is time clash. Soft clash or clearance clash is a failure caused by insufficient space between the components. In a hard clash, two building components occupy the same space completely or partially. Time clash, in contrast to the definitions of soft and hard clash, includes spatial challenges to constructability or operability. To comprehend and interpret the concepts of clash detection, which is a subcomponent of building information modeling technology, using bibliometric analysis on academic big data, the first step is defining the scope of this research theoretical framework section. One of the objectives of this study is to understand the relationship between building information modeling term and clash detection using academic big data. Using Weaver, a visual representation was generated to illustrate the interconnections of scholarly publications pertaining to clash detection, which were sourced from the SGI and SSGI databases. Initially, the phrase building information modeling, and the clash detection were inputted together and separately as a search keywords within the Web of Science database, and the resulting metadata was subsequently transported to OSWeaver platform. Based on the findings of the co-occurrence analysis, it is evident that the word clash detection has emerged as a prominent focus in the recent scholarly investigations. Subsequently, an analysis centered on the term clash detection was conducted by establishing rules, fine-tuning parameters, and implementing filters within the OSWeaver platform. According to the co-occurrence analysis performed on the term clash detection, 7 clusters were established, and the number of items inside each group was distributed in a non-normalized technique. In an examination of the group components reveals that their applications are most prevalent in the sectors of construction management, information system, 4D simulation, and design coordination. Other groupings include data visualization, perception, simulators, simulations, enjoyment, gameplay, and experiences. This study consists of several aspects related to a two-story social cultural institution with an enclosed space of approximately 1,200 square meters, including design, modeling, clash detection, manual inspection, and labeling, reporting, and comparative analysis. An architectural model was generated using BIM digital tools to facilitate the conceptual mass design and visual depiction of preliminary concepts. The level of detail was established as 100 during the concept phase and increased to the 300 for the final model. The proposed project structural system, and characterized by composite form in structural terms, has been planned and modeled with a comparable level of detail. The final stage of the process was conducting a clash detection analysis. 3D geometric system was subsequently loaded into Autodesk Navisworks Manage 20x20, utilizing the NVC file format. Several search have demonstrated the contribution of this digital tool to the process of clash identification and reporting. After filtering and extracting analysis results in XML format, throughout examination was conducted to identify and classify both soft and hard overlaps. Prior to conducting an analysis, it is necessary to establish clear and well-defined clash rules. The determination of tolerance value range is conducted during this stage. Clash management plays a crucial role in ensuring the consistent quality of design and mitigating the need for adjustments or rework at the construction site. So, the present study aimed to evaluate the efficacy of clash detection analysis in the context of architectural and static projects pertaining to the small-scale social cultural facility. Within the scope of this study, the clash detection tests were examined in 2 distinct areas, namely the bottom floor and the first story. Overlap locations and items can be categorized into 2 main groups: architectural components such as interior walls, span elements, objects, structural elements, including columns, beams, and slabs. Each section's soft and hard overlaps were fine-tuned and manually regulated to ensure consistency. Based on the findings, the first floor exhibited the highest level of inaccuracy, while the bottom floor demonstrated the lowest level of error. The primary factor contributing to the high rate of overlap on the ground floor can be attributed to the points of connection between the partition walls and steel beams. The presence of soft overlaps has been attributed to modeling flaws, particularly those related to the inaccurate positions of components and their interconnections with other objects. While analyzing the geometric relationship between intersecting and closely positioned pieces, it was observed that there were a greater number of architectural static groups compared to the architectural, and static groups. When analyzing time overlap at the macro detail level for the BIM model, the schedule generated with schematic durations does not contain nesting. In conclusion, virtual 3D modeling and clash detection analysis provide lots of advantages to design teams, particularly throughout the design phases of extensive projects. So, the presence of any potential issues related to the intersection of distinct geometric entities becomes apparent. Clash detection analysis effectively unveils the junction between spatial and 3D geometric entities. Besides the improvement in the design-focused team's cooperation and problem-solving approach. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, my dear friend. Shall we have questions? right now, or maybe who would like to ask any question to any presentation?
Yeah, I want to ask
would you
something.
like to? Yes, please do.
Yes. Can we use clash detection with another programs, for example, Rhino or Grasshopper? And this program, what kind of relations can we find with this program?
Okay, Hocam, thank you for your questions. It was a good question, actually. We use Navisworks, Autodesk Navisworks Manage for clash detection process, but another specific program such as Solibri is used for clash detection analysis. This is standalone program, but I don't know any plugin for Rhino or another NURBS modeling programming for to understand clash detection analysis. The second question is, we analyzed just geometric relationships of architectural and structural objects of the modelings in positions such as intersection point and the nearing point and the time clash. Navisworks is beneficial to understand these clash types and calculating the geometrical object locations and their positions in 3D. And that's all.
Can we use this program in the early design process? In design process, can we use that?
Yes, it's actually design process. We used Revit 2020, and after we exported to the Navisworks, and we get feedbacks, some points, some architectural elements intersected. So we move on to Revit environment, and we changed this geometric relationship. And after we sent the Navisworks at final phase. Actually, this cycle is feedback design. We get feedbacks from Navisworks. We get the design errors and checking geometrical relationships, and we move on to we develop the design process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. Any other question? If there isn't, I would like to ask a question. It's a quite interesting research. I would like to congratulate you because I am a professor of history of architecture. Just a question hit to my mind. If it is possible to use these clash types on historic buildings, like uploading the details of the historic buildings to the system, then taking the clash types of them, can we design a new historic, let's say, such as a Gothic cathedral prototype from the beginning, or something like that?
Okay, Professor, it's another good question. Yes, you can use in restoration or restitution phases your 3D modeling phase in clash detection.
Moreover than this, to create a new Gothic cathedral from the beginning that hasn't been designed on a way before, is it possible to do that with using those clash types?
Actually, in literature, clash types is designed for new buildings, not historic buildings, but some prototype studies exist in the adapting the clash detection strategies to historic building information model, HP. So it's just new experiment.
Oh, sure. Maybe a new research topic for you.
Yes.
For the next LivenArch, maybe we'll talk about it. Thank you very much for your attendance. So I would like to invite dear Maria Oliver and Tania URSOMARZO who are attending today from a far away geography. I think you are from United Emirates right now. You are there. They are from the American University of Sharjah, and their topic is tangible, intangible, tangible, regenerating craft through design. Please welcome them.
Thank you. Tangible, tangible, regenerating craft through design. The cultural heritage manifested in traditional crafts is an integral part of culture, economy, and society in established and emerging nations. We can say that every period of history and every community has its artifact and its dynamic way of transmitting knowledge that can guarantee the survival of the individual and the collective as a carrier of identity. One such artifact is the generations-old craft of weaving, practiced mostly by women in rural communities in the United Arab Emirates. As an anthropological sign of the nomadic life of Bedouin culture, weaving seems to embody collective memory. Although the value of this craft as an individualistic and ecological form of production and cultural identity is widely recognized, its preservation and transformation have been challenged by the forces of mass production and globalization. Additionally, its value as a unique and sustainable form of making continues to be reduced to decorative objects rather than exploring its potential as a design and architectural material. The inclusion of al-Sadu weaving in the UNESCO list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity in 2011 recognized its cultural significance and the need to protect and preserve it. According to UNESCO, intangible cultural properties such as orally transmitted cultural materials, performing arts, rituals, and crafts are traditions inherited from ancestors and passed on to future generations. Their importance lies in the wealth of knowledge that is passed from one generation to the next. The question arises, however, whether the inclusion on this list is a guarantee of craft regeneration, or whether weaving can be saved from imminent disappearance through active practices with other disciplines. What are the challenges or limitations of incorporating weaving into design? How can the integration of weaving into design contribute to aspects of sustainability, overall aesthetics, and the experience of a space? How can it help promote and support local artisans and craftspeople? The integration of traditional weaving into architecture and design has gained significant attention in recent years. Designers such as Paula Anzique, a Turin-based artist, have been inspired by the weaving and dyeing traditions of the United Arab Emirates and have incorporated these influences into the production of experimental woven textiles. During her residency at Tashkil in Dubai, she created textile pieces that investigated the intersections of tradition, culture, and nature, and in partnership with the Italian brand Loro Piana, a luxury fashion brand specializing in high-quality, environmentally friendly, and ethically sourced materials. For instance, she utilized spices to represent the long-standing ties and trade channels between the UAE and neighboring regions. By bringing together traditional crafts and experimentation, her work raises awareness about the importance of preserving and valuing traditional craftsmanship. The collaboration with commercial brands also has the potential to promote and create economic opportunities for local weavers as their work is showcased and potentially sold by well-known fashion brands. The House of Artisans in Abu Dhabi by the British firm Austin Smith Lord reflects upon the use of arish, a traditional weaving technique that utilizes palm fronds to create a light filtering facade. The House of Artisans serves as a prime example of how traditional techniques can be integrated into contemporary buildings, creating a harmonious blend of past and present. The woven exterior skin not only serves as an aesthetic element, but also provides functional benefits as a natural shading system that allows for the regulation of temperature and sunlight. Our proposal, Intangible, Tangible, for the United Arab Emirates National Pavilion at the 2023 Venice Biennial highlighted the importance of handcraft in contemporary design by exploring weaving techniques that integrate structural properties into the design of habitable spaces. The proposal aimed to highlight the relevance of traditional woven handcrafts and their potential to create natural, reusable, reconfigurable, and spatial temporary architecture using local materials and resources. The proposal consists of a system of expandable and collapsible woven modules joined by woven hinges that transcend decorative surface and object making to become space-defining, structural, transformable, and transportable architectural space. Sited in the Arsenale building, the official exhibition venue of the Venice Biennial, the modular woven system evolved from the site's geometries and the intention to design a contiguous woven skin. The innovative use of traditional materials, namely palm fronds, and the design of folds into a larger woven skin creates a self-supporting module, adding spatial dimension to what would otherwise remain a two-dimensional surface. The overhead structure was formed by a central spine of modules, from which other modules joined and branched out into the exhibition space, interacting with the space between the columns and between the columns and the walls. 5 final module types resulted: the overhead modules, those within the central spine lifted above, and the threshold modules, those that intercept the central spine and move through the site's periphery while contacting the ground. A photographic taxonomy of the 5 folded modules catalogs the variety of formal qualities that each unit embodies. The woven modules are a type of spatial apparatus that combines form, volume, and structure and allows for independent deployment across the exhibition area without the need for additional support. This allows the woven modules to unfold, fold, rotate, pivot, connect to other modules, and be reconfigured freely. Overall, the modular woven system transformed into a 3-dimensional spatial experience that allowed visitors to move freely between a realm of overhead folded planes and a mapping of mobilities marked on the floor. The interaction between the permanence of the existing historic space and the space of the temporal woven folds created a synchronous environment that blended the traditional with the contemporary, convention with invention, and degeneration with regeneration. The use of locally available natural biodegradable materials, together with the process of weaving and assembling, reflects Immanuel Kant's idea of the sense of touch as a vehicle that ensures the reality of an object and gives an account of its truthful being. The proposal is an attempt to reconcile design and craft with the juxtaposition of generations, geographies, and traditions through the creation of a spatial apparatus capable of solving global problems such as shelter for refugee camps or areas of natural disaster and war. Thank you for your interest and for listening.
It's a quite interesting topic too. I would like to congratulate you, my dear friends. Nowadays, I am believing that using of the natural materials on architecture is quite important topic for all of the designers on our field. I think you have raised your hands during the presentation. Would you like to say something?
You can just ignore that. I thought that the video had gotten stuck at some point and it wasn't advancing, but I think it's fine. Yeah. No worries.
Maybe it was because of your line, internet line, because it was perfectly presented. Please.
Okay, great. Okay, great.
Yeah, I think it is fluid. Yeah, it is fluid with us. I think, yeah, it's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any question to this topic?
Yeah,
yes, please do.
First of all, can we use the words instead of this words parametric and non-parametric? When we say yes, I have a question. How do you use or code the data of non-parametric or intangible data? We can say. I say non-parametric.
I think we were. It's easy to from the other side to think that we were thinking first about parametric. We were thinking first of all the idea of the main topic, right, which was much more about the relevance of the weavers and the weaving instead of being just a craft. Why don't we integrate it more into design? The second thing, which was very important, is how do you transmit that information from generation to generation? but also the idea of how this piece was going to move from one place to another. So that's why at some point you see how the parametric forms collapse and non-collapse. We thought if we collapse it, we can put it in a suitcase, and when we arrive there, or a box, and then when we arrive there, we open it and we assemble it, right? So we were not thinking so much in our brains about the parametric system per se, but the idea of these modules and repetitions. I'm going to let Tania expand on that, because she spent much more time in this kind of origami form typologies that we use for the canopy. Tania.
Yes, so as Marissa pointed out, yes, it wasn't done with parametrics at all. It was done, literally through physical model, the way that we sort of learned to build and make. And we felt that was kind of an important way to maybe start or approach the project, because weaving is such a, it's this notion of Immanuel Kant's sense of touch, right? That it's really about how we understand material through the sense of touch, and what are those material possibilities, right? So no, it wasn't done with parametrics, though I think that the question is an interesting one, right? If I understood your question correctly, you're asking, how does this transmission of knowledge and culture happen if the work is then, let's say, optimized using parametric design, right, to adapt it? So it's a fascinating question. I don't actually, I personally don't have the answer to it, but I think it's an excellent question, because I think that is part of what advances the work or makes it relevant in contemporary design, right, and allows it to be applicable in terms of the way that we design and make today. What happens, but then that becomes, the flip side, the other question, then what happens to this cultural preservation, or the preservation? Is it really in transmitting how we work with, or advancing how we work with the materials? Is that how we keep it alive? I think it's part of the questions that we ourselves were asking as a part of the research of this project, right? Like, in order to keep it alive and to make it relevant in contemporary design, what happens, to the cultural transmission of knowledge, in order for it to survive, does it have to change? Right?
Yeah. For example, the folding technology is it coming from the traditional shape or another things?
Well, we base it on the idea of the tent, because we're limited in time for the presentation. Our text is longer, and at some point we talk about the Bedouin tent, right? So we started from there, which is the basic knowledge of the of the kind of like a weaving system, and also other artifacts that were much more into the idea of folding. So yeah, we based it on that. We started with that. We went to the weavers' space of production. We interview. It's a little bit hard to interview them because they're sort of like a secluded, which is another problem. Sort of like the secrecy of weaving. But there were a lot of possibilities with the material. But initially we thought this is like the tent, right? And how is it that we're creating this sort of like notion that there's a textile in the overhead, and then at the bottom there's a mapping of how people would move around the space. It's too bad that there's no way. Of course, we needed a big budget for this, because imagine, it would have been great to establish a typology done by the weavers, right, like a prototype, just for us to understand that there are several systems here. There's the textile, but there's also the portion that engages into the existing structural system. So we didn't get it, but I hope that Tania, at some point we get something to test this, because I think it's a fascinating project that has relevance, right? For us, the relevance is much more important.
There's a, just to build on Marissa's comments as well, any time you engage a new project and a new site, you know, the work inherently also needs to respond to that, right? So what's interesting about Bedouin architecture is that it's nomadic, right? So it needs to fold, it needs to move, right? It needs to change, it needs to be able to adapt to change and to different conditions of site. So, you know, the project also needed to, you know, it was designed like what we showed you, of course, that proposal was in response to the site that we were working with, which was the, you know, the space of the exhibition for the UAE National Pavilion in the Arsenale building, right? So so that particular application was also in response to that site's geometries, you know, needed to work with that kind of condition. But the idea was that those module typologies, right, those 5 types of modules would be able to you know, would be able to adapt to different conditions of site or modify relative to these techniques, you know, in terms of how they were constructed, etc., so that they could adapt to different conditions of site.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now let's welcome the third topic of today, time-space possibilities in Lebbeus architecture by Elif, RUZGAR and Levent, ARIDAG.
Hi, I'm Elif. I will tell you time-space possibilities in Lebbeus architecture. Content. This study focuses on a subversive architectural approach that questions traditional architectural principles and rejects the boundaries, control mechanisms, and social structures that have been prevalent throughout history. It explores 5 key concepts guided by Lebbeus with an architecture perspective: counter-architecture, free space, hierarchic zones, time temporality, and network systems. These concepts reflect a perspective that challenges traditional norms in the field of architecture. Additionally, it highlights efforts to accelerate the design process and gain a deeper understanding of architectural concepts using digital technology. Is an American architect whose understanding of architecture developed within the scope of an architecture. Make visible what without you might perhaps never have been seen. As an architect working in the realm of representation without construction, Lebbeus was final possibility of another act of making. The inquirer says, I'm an architect because I do not build. We can think of representation as a mirror reflecting a reflection. In this case, the mirror becomes the architect. Lebbeus' architectural philosophy challenges traditional architectural norms and represents an innovative approach, whose design strategy encompasses the following fundamental principles. These titles generally form the concept in Wood's works. Probabilities of time, expression of time perception in Lebbeus illustrations. Serve as a powerful tool for expressing different dimensions and possibilities of time. His drawings are characterized by temporal rupture points. He constructs parallel universes and envisions utopias, often more like heterotopies, that cite the complete authority of his newly created universe. He explores scenarios such as post-war cities and post-earthquake cities, reflecting imprecisions that emphasize the non-linear progression of the destiny of shattered, fragmented, and dispersed. I will show you many diagrams about Wood's time and space approaches. This figure aims to depict the possibilities of time by representing time as a grid-like fabric and revealing its cyclical and intricate nature. Wood's representation of layered and parallel expressions of time forms a pattern that overlays without directly touching, thus opening the window to these possibilities. Wood's illustrations portray time in a fragmented and layered manner, incorporating complex compositions that simultaneously represent different time frames and possibilities. It's like centricity illustration. According to Wood, a critical point in time is often when an event has occurred. With a realistic and idealistic perspective, this diagram aims to reveal the time ruptures in Wood's representation displaying forces that compel transformation. This push and pull reacting to time transformation possibilities. Figure 7 illustrates that time is now converging with the power to chart its own course. Wood's representation case empowers this phenomenon. The cyclical perspective on time, as evident in this expression, is not limited but rather expansive. This expression reveals the movement of forces that challenge transformation. Space. The creation of space also influences time. This representation aims to predict how time can behave in a virtual surreal context, allowing us to comprehend possibilities and create a form accordingly. Wood's illustration serves as a means to express different dimensions and possibilities of space. In this context, Wood's illustration reflects the spatial possibilities as follows. Portray various spatial possibilities and heterotopies. Wood explores the extraordinary and intellectual dimensions of space. These illustrations visualize different spatial scenarios and possibilities, emphasizing the potential diversity of space. Foucault argues that real utopias are heterotopias. Heterotopias emerge from the chaos and complexity brought about by the perpetuation and singularity of utopia. This chaos necessitates the amalgamation of differences. Wood's perspective on utopian cities reveals the heterotopian foundation beneath the grid-like structures and underscores the integration of differences and chaos into a comprehensive whole. Important, Wood's works can function as literary texts in this sense since they contain possibilities. When analyzed within the parameters of semiotics, Wood's works reveal a connection established through contrasts. The semiotics requires an important analytical method for examining event and character narratives. According to this method, it is possible to extract concepts such as utopia, war, chaos, and transformation as contrasts in Wood's works. These contrasts strategically influence our analytical approach when creating possibilities in the mind. Wood's works influence the filmmakers like Blade Runner, like 12 Monkeys, the scene from The System New York, for example, made it possible the relationship between utopia and dystopia. We also see a relatable diagram through the use of haptic diagrams. We would like to see this effect when we reflect Wood's parameters into spatial language. His design showcases the possibilities of utopia and dystopia. They reflect the complexity of idealism and realism. Wood's design reveals that space carries the potential of both utopia and dystopia, urging viewers to contemplate and question different aspects of space. Wood's illustrations challenging traditional architectural norms. It's like these illustrations. Firstly, Wood views space not merely as a physical entity, but also as a dynamic entity interacting with time. He emphasizes how space evolves, and he highlights the interaction between time and space in his design. Secondly, Wood sees the design process as a journey of exploration and experimentation. Lastly, Wood utilizes network systems and hierarchical structures in his design. He emphasizes how different components of space are interconnected and interact with each other. This approach aids in understanding the complexity of space and its connection and helps us better comprehend the possibilities of changing spaces over time. In conclusion, Lebbeus' architectural practice focuses on exploring and expressing the possibilities of time and space. His design combines the layers of time, the bands of space, and possibilities in a complex and inspiring manner. Lebbeus' architectural philosophy represents an approach that questions traditional norms and reveals the infinite potential of space. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for attending. I have an interesting question on my mind. You have shared the quotation of Robert Parison together with us. Make visible what you might perhaps never been seen. What do you think? Can it be the Wood's architecture used as the basic concept of finding a solution of architectural construction gem of Istanbul for our future?
I thank you for question. Books works on historical buildings, transforming them.
Not only on historical buildings, actually, I didn't want to touch to the topic of the historical buildings. I would like to touch to the topic of creating the new architectural construction in Istanbul. Maybe you would like to think about it, and you can use it on your future research as one subtopic. Okay. Any other question?
I answer something about it. We need for all building in Turkey, in Istanbul, an ecological approach. We think with Elif, Lebbeus has also an important ecological approach. We think he used also autopoietic approach in design system. We can say so. We can change the system in Istanbul building system with another things with ecological idea, and we can change this system with something topological systems to use the facade on the building, a new facade on the building. We can say so.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, please, Maria. But we cannot hear you. I think your microphone is off.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
I have a question about this idea of utopia and dystopia, and I'm wondering if you think that that it depends on the spatial condition that Lebbeus Woods is working. I mean, it seems like a contradiction when we think about utopia, when Lebbeus Woods drawings are always, they always look like dystopian in a way, right? It's about, and you mentioned it, right? It's about chatter spaces and fragmented spaces and spaces that look like things have been destroyed. But then at some point, sometimes we sense that there's something about utopia. Would you say that this idea of utopia and dystopia regards different kinds of representations? Are the interior of the spaces much more a condition of utopia, and the exterior is much more about a condition of dystopia?
Very good question. Thank you very much.
Did you understand the question?
Yes, I understand. Actually, this gives us information. We try understand this positive way. Okay, utopia, dystopia, and also transforming and heterotopies. Heterotopies like ordinary environment, like we live in city, our city, Turkish city. Also, this information, we understand its codes. We try to produce coded spaces by using this information in space strategy. We would like to propose to space strategy. Okay.
We can say we can use these utopic strategies to use in positive space organization like heterotopia, and we can make this with biology. in the nature, we can say. We can study the nature with ecology. We can say the change the steers with ecological perspective.
Okay. Is it okay for you, my dear Maria? Or would you like to add up
No,
some
it's fine.
sub-questions?
Fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And please welcome our last topic of today's first session, exploring the regenerative capacity of architecture in the Anthropocene era through the Heringe's architecture by Kubra, BIYUK, OKSUZ, and Kubra Sağlam. Yes, please.
BIYUK OKSUZ. I'm a research assistant at Istanbul University, and I prepared this study with Kubra Sağlam. She is a research assistant at Artvin Çoruh University. And the study investigates architecture's regenerative potentials, which has significantly caused the planet's mass degenerative effects during the Anthropocene era. The study explores regenerative potentials using Anna Heringe's MIT handmade school as a case study. Through in-depth analysis, we examined the school's regenerative aspects presented through a relational diagram and collage. In the presentation, I will discuss these three sections. I would like to briefly talk what the Anthropocene era is. And this term refers to cumulative consequences of human activities on Earth. Human impact on nature has accelerated since the Industrial Revolution and has become more destructive with the population growth since the 1950s, leading to current Anthropocene era. And I added this cave image here because it's like a metaphorical visualization of humans' handprints on nature that can be traced back to ancient times. It shows that how lasting the consequences of our actions can be. And of course, the primary indicator of the age is the climate crisis, leading to destructive and sometimes irreversible consequences. For that, Haraway attributes blame to capitalist powers, not all of humanity. In this age, the construction sector plays a significant role in human-made environmental destruction. Sustainability paradigms in architecture have lost their good impact over time, with development often favored over sustainability in decision-making process. And capital holders use development terms to justify harm to nature. And architecture harms nature through some actions like irrational urban planning process, mega projects, excavation, filling, and unsustainable materials, etc. The construction sector is a major source of carbon emissions. The architecture industry should adopt holistic regenerative design to benefit nature. Regenerative design based on sustainable development concept encompasses environmental, social, and economical sustainability. It focuses on the co-evolution of human and natural systems to create a more sustainable future. Regenerative design is an approach to planning, architecture, and environmental stewardship that seeks to create systems and environments that not only sustain but also restore and renew natural and physical resources. Mainly, regenerative design requires adaptability, system thinking, qualitative context, transformative action, and community-focused. And these principles guide development towards sustainable built environments that acknowledge the complex and ever-evolving interplay between social, cultural, and ecological systems. And we investigated specifically Heringe's one work, the Handmade School. we examined this example's construction process and lifespan with the perspective of regenerative design system thinking. The school promotes personalized learning style, and the school's architecture features diverse spaces, including cave classrooms with earth walls, and the school is a perfect example of sustainable architectural practices and was awarded the AHAN for architecture in 2007. And the diagram illustrates environmentally oriented targets and their social outcomes. The diagram shows the school's holistic regenerative system design. In the project, Heringe implemented utilizing local materials, local energy sources, and global knowledge. For local materials, the project focuses locally available materials like mud, bamboo, and textiles, combining traditional and modern construction methods. Using local materials has generated regenerative environmental impacts due to their availability, traditional use, non-toxic nature, and suitability for low-tech processing and renewability. Also, it has led to regenerative social and economic impacts, fosters place identity, belonging, and pride, encourages community participation and social interaction, empowers women textile producers, and also reduces external dependency. For local energy sources, they maximize community self-sufficiency by using local energy sources like labor, including women, children, even buffaloes. All community actively participated, especially in mud-related tasks due to its non-toxic nature. This inclusive approach promoted environmental and lots of social impacts. It shows collective community involvement can achieve strengthen social capital and holistic sustainability. For global knowledge, local laborers were trained by German architects and they built the building, and it produces creating a regenerative system where local tradesmen can independently restore and construct similar building. This enhances local skills and self-sufficiency. For the conclusion, using non-toxic materials, using local energy sources, teaching locals global techniques for using these materials in construction, all of these foster a cyclical regenerative system effect. This approach also highlights the power of community-driven design over technological determinism. And we emphasize that one-dimensional actions often fall in creating regenerative effects. Regenerative potential in architectural work relies on environmentally conscious decisions adopted and preserved by the community. So community involvement is crucial. And also unique strategies in rural areas can create sustainable cycle, reduce migration, and build stronger local communities. And this study emphasizes the regenerative potential of architecture through context analysis and the use of local resources and global knowledge. And finally, we can say that Heringe's environmentally focused design ultimately fosters community spirit regenerative creation. And my presentation ends here, and I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your presentation. Just like the question I have asked to our other presenters, what do you think? Can it be the using of this concept, regenerating the architectural examples, especially on using of natural materials all across Anatolia, can be a solution for nowadays architectural troubles in Anatolia, especially by using of adobe material or some other natural material. Can we use it a kind of new conceptual solution there? What is your point of view?
Firstly, I can say something maybe. So
please, yes, please.
For Anatolia, of course, we aimed, of course, we focused on a single example because this project, Heringe's opinion, Heringe's principles, but of course, we implement these principles into different kind of rural areas because these principles like local matters, local energy sources, and global knowledge is crucial for creating system thinking. And for the local areas, and for example, can, mitigate these negative environmental impacts or create strong communities, we have to create some regenerative effect in the rural areas. So I think this is the crucial thing for assess all around of the different aspects of the local places according to the regenerative system thinking. So I think we can implement, these principles can be implemented into the different kind of skills, but of course we have to assess the whole area differently, because the all rural area has different kind of things, different cultural background, different cultural, different behavioral things. So I think the all principal things can be issued with differently. Can I say shortly?
Okay, thank you very much. I can see that Maria and Tania, they have raised their hands. Yes, please, my dear friends, who would like to take the word first?
I don't have a question. I just actually had a comment just to add to the discussion, and it was actually in response to your question, Zafer. At least from my perspective as an architect, I think that and I think, one of the reasons why the most recent presentation was also important is because I think that we do have to learn how to pay better attention to the natural environment around it, and that we do need to look at ways whether they become integrated with new technologies or whatnot. And in order to survive, we have to move to more responsible design and building practices. So, I would say that yes, it's possible, but it's also necessary. So we will make it possible because of the necessity. And I think that the last presentation also brings up a good point about, how to deal with regenerative building and sustainable building in areas that don't have access to advanced technology and construction, right? In order for those areas to build sustainably and to be able to maintain, for example, that architecture, it has to become synchronized, or in tune with the local building materials and local practices. So we're probably going to see very advanced, or if I just toggle back to the very first presentation, which involves computational that's another side of things where digital technologies, which are going to, of course, continue to advance, are going to affect the ways that we can build in a sustainable fashion. But we have to remember that there are also these other areas around the world that may not have access to those tools, to those equipment, to those materials, to those technologies. So how do we build responsibly in those parts of the world, right? And they're everywhere. They're more, you know, so anyway, it's just a comment. It's not really, it's not a question, but I think that
it's a great comment. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we have to remember to keep that in mind, you know, because there's a heavy focus, I think, today, especially on how the digital current and future technologies are going to take that over. But I would disagree that they won't take it over completely, because there will always be parts of the world that cannot operate in that fashion, cannot build sustainably in that, with those types of technologies, because they simply don't have them.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other question or comments?
I was going to extend a little bit Tania's statement about extending our knowledge in the practice, and I would go much more with, and I know that it sounds like a cliche, but this idea of much more interdisciplinary developments and understanding of that architecture cannot work isolated. I think each day with our new much more theoretical, conceptual terminologies, I think we're isolating ourselves much more. The idea that through interdisciplinary research, we can also work with other venues that we have never worked before and create paradigm shifts in architecture. For example, the research on bacteria, right? And how bacteria can also become new materials for architecture. The idea that we have now people researching in the desert and discovering that the desert is not only sand, but that there are small bodies of water that also contain certain material that works almost like glue. So people are much more interested in that, and of course, as Tania mentioned, of course, digital technologies are great, but I think that we have a lot in front of us that we're still not seeing, and little by little, people are getting into the idea of researching this further for the development or creating a paradigm shift in architecture. In an architecture that is facing all these issues with sustainability. And the last, statement is we have to be careful with our idea of sustainability. I think that we have generalized it too much, and by attempting to be sustainable in some things, we are creating unsustainabilities in other terms. So we just have to be more careful with that. We go at the speed of light, and it's like it cannot happen. Thank you.
Thanks to you. I'm thinking on the same way with you. It's quite important, but on the other side of the medal, we have to be so sure about what we should do on it. So today we have spoken about creating our new architectural designs, regenerating them, while preserving the nature by using natural materials on the field, as creating the nomadic architecture examples, or maybe using of the common techniques even on bigger scales. So I would like to thank to all of the presenters and hope to see you meet on maybe another online conference or meeting or face-to-face somewhere all around the world. Please keep in touch. We can be also in touch by Instagram all around our country, Turkey. We are using Instagram a lot, especially, to be in touch on the architectural topics by sharing the images fastly. Hope to meet you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet everyone.
So this is the end of the first session of the second morning of LivenArch VIII. Bye-bye.
Bye.